It might seem confusing, this title. Why would we want to accept the subpar? Why would we want to lower our standards and say that it's okay, that it's actually encouraged and it's acceptable to be subpar? Well, I think the main reason is accepting the subpar is not necessarily an endorsement that this is the level of standard that we want. Perhaps it is, if you look at it from another perspective, is an endorsement of what we can become, of the potential that is there, right? Because not everybody comes from an equal playing field, which is why accepting the subpar is sometimes necessary to help even the odds and think of it as a long-term plan to solve a systemic issue. So, what is my personal experience with this? I used to be really into video game editing. If you've seen my other channel, you'll know that during high school, I did those edits a lot. So basically, if you're not introduced to this or you don't know what I'm talking about, video game editing is people will record clips in various video games, and it's usually centered around first-person shooter games, but I've seen these edits in like all kinds of games, so you can really do it with anything. People will record clips of video games, and editors will sync it up with music and add effects and try and create a new piece of, I think you could say, art. Maybe that's subjective. I mean, art is inherently subjective, but I think it's art. It's for the people who appreciate the work and craft that goes into it. And one of the things that often happen is it's a transformative process, right? You have these video game clips that by itself, while the content in them may be impressive, they don't really represent anything, right? And the goal of these video game editors, what we did was by adding music and effects, we're trying to like turn it into a story. We're trying to invoke emotions. We're trying to create it into something more meaningful for the people that are watching it. So naturally, when you have a big community of people like this, all doing the same thing, some people are going to be better, some people are going to be worse. And like with any community, groups and cliques form, right? Cliques is a negative connotation, but I'm saying this in a positive way. Like groups form where people with like-minded interpretations of the art, people who share similar creative values and who create similar work, that all maybe like target the same audience or target the same emotion in what they're trying to do, they'll come together and they'll naturally, form groups because they're doing similar things. I think it's just nature. It's natural to do that kind of stuff. So in this community, there was various types of groups and infrastructure to try and help editors find groups, right? So there's this one main channel called the Enigma community, T3C, right? And it's basically a community channel where lots of editors can submit the videos that they want to be uploaded to try and share it with the larger community, right? And this channel is a curated platform. So I think it was either, for a time, it was just the owner, but then they moved on. I think they had at least a couple people looking at submissions. And then they do some kind of quality control check where they're like, is this video worth putting onto the channel, right? To share with everybody else. And they have to do this because a whole lot of people are all trying to submit their clips, and it's not like they want to upload every single thing, right? They want to have a standard, at least a expected level of craft and refinement in the videos that they post. So they don't want to just post all kinds of like, oh, this is my first ever edit kind of garbage, right? They want to have at least a level of expectation for the stuff that they're putting up. So with this expectation and with the channel being so big, naturally the standards are actually quite high, and most people in the editing community, they don't meet those standards. I think you could probably say this of most communities, right? The people that you know about the people that are famous and the people that are well known, they're in the upper niche, upper, let's say 5, 10, maybe 20% of the community. The vast majority, the 80%, are the people that are aspiring to be there, right? You can see this in any kind of sport, right? All the people that we watch in like basketball, the NBA, I mean, this is even more than the 5%. These are the top like 0.01% of all basketball players. And these are the people we aspire to be. And the vast majority, all the college hoopers, all the high school hoopers, and all the casual fans of basketball below, we're the bottom 99.9%, right? And that's what we're aspiring to be. So, because the community is structured like that, and because so many people want to submit their clips to this channel, the channel not being able to upload all these clips, they still want to give exposure to the people aspiring to be the top, right? Because not everybody can be at the top, but perhaps it gives, they still want to showcase all the talent that's still there, the potential talent, the potential for people to get to the top, right? So they created this other channel called T3C United. So they have the main channel T3C, and then they have the second channel T3C United. And this United channel, the second channel, is focused on fostering like these potential talents, right? When you're watching videos on this channel, you're probably expecting a standard of quality that is lower than the main channel, right? But there's going to be more volume. There's more people that are going to be uploaded here because the people that are deciding what gets uploaded on this channel have felt that the people being uploaded here have the potential to get to the main channel, right? They've shown flashes of skill and brilliance in maybe like 1 or 2 categories of general video game editing. And maybe in order to get to the main channel, these editors have to develop some of their other skills in other areas that they aren't as good at yet, right? So in this way, uploading to the T3C United channel, it's an acceptance of subpar. If we're thinking that on par, the standard that we're trying to get to is the main channel. And we're saying that the sec channel is subpar because the videos uploaded here, the level is lower. There's things that are missing. But we're accepting this subpar because we're recognizing that the people being uploaded here, the people that deserve to be here, they are and they have the potential. They are like the next generation of people that are going to go onto the main channel. So in order to foster this, to encourage them to keep grinding, right? We want to accept them. We want to show that we see you, we see the potential that you have, and we think that if you put in a little bit more work, you can reach the next step. So this is all good in theory, but why do I think this actually works, right? I think a big part of motivation when you're trying to learn something, get into something, and really just improve at something is having recognition from the people that are more skilled. They're seeing that having the recognition where they admit, or not just admit because that's a negative connotation, they recognize that you are improving, you have the potential to be there, and that gives the encouragement for, speaking from my own experience, for me to want to keep going and to keep wanting to improve, because I know that the people that I'm trying to reach, they see me and they see how hard I'm working and they see that I can get there and they recognize it, right? So with my own experience in the editing community, besides these 2 channels, the T3C and T3C United, right? These are big community hubs. But of course, there's a lot more smaller groups. These are called editing teams. So like I said before about groups, people congregate together when they have like a certain style of video game edits, right? So there are different editing teams that maybe specialize in different styles of editing, like different forms of art. There are people that really like, the really flashy trap music, bang bang, pulse, screen going crazy. And then maybe there are the people that like the more artsy, abstract kinds of video game edits, where maybe you have to think a little bit more and you have to just let go and appreciate the feeling and the emotions that the edit evokes in you, right? And there's a lot of these different groups that represent different things. And a big part of the editing community in its heyday was people trying to join these teams. So the way that you applied to these teams is every time when you made an edit, you often had like intros and outros, right? It's like before the actual chunk, the main chunk of the edit, as the music is like ramping up before it gets to the main part of the song, you'll put in little intro text or videos or things to like slowly get the person into the video. And what editing teams did, and this was the same with the T3C and T3C United channel as well, they'd have intro videos that you could put into your edits. So if you put these intros into your edits, you are essentially telling everybody who's watching the edit, I'm interested in this channel and in this group, and my edit is kind of like an application, or it's saying I want to be like these people and I respect these people, right? So this was often part of the application process for a lot of these editing groups. You'd download their intros that they put online, and then you put it into your edits. And then you like maybe also as an extra step submit it through Google Forms. So then people would know that, oh, you're interested in joining this group. Okay. So there's all these different groups. And when I was in the editing community, as I think most everybody who wanted to improve in the editing community, we all wanted to join groups, right? Because they're like exclusive clubs. It's just like in high school, any social environment, you want to join exclusive clubs because it makes you feel more special, makes you feel more connected with people that are on an elevated level, on an elevated field in this overall community. And that's the thing, right? I was in the editing community for, I'd say like a good 3 years where I was actively grinding, maybe 2-3 years, yeah, where I was actively grinding. I was recording edits, and then I was like creating them and then uploading them and applying to groups. And the thing was, I was always getting rejected, okay, which is no big surprise when I'm starting out, right? But I think the really demotivating thing was most of the groups that I applied to, they never even responded to the application. It's like if you're applying to college, if you've gone through this process before, or maybe just applying to anything, right? Just imagine you're applying maybe to a job, like your first job as a teenager. You submit your application and you eagerly wait in the mail because you want to earn some money for the response. And it's like, do I get this job? Will I be able to start making money? And you go to the mailbox every day. You eagerly await when the USPS truck pulls up, dumps in the mail. That's like your highlight of the day, right? It's anticipation waiting for it. And every time you go, you check the mailbox, and every day you're disappointed because you see no response. You see that they have never hit you up. They've never hit your phone, hit your home phone, the landline, your cell phone, whatever time it is. They haven't responded to you, responded to your application. It's like you never even submitted it. And that was the problem for me when I was first applying to a lot of these editing groups at the beginning. Now, I don't necessarily fault them because, as I said, my level when I was starting out with editing was very, very low. And with the volume of applicants, it's not like they can respond to every single person, right? And especially since this is not that serious. This is a hobby for people, right? This is not a career, really. This is not like life or death. So, I mean, it's not that serious if people ghost, right? But at the same time, even though I can understand all of these caveats and I can understand all the reasonings, it was demotivating. It was like I put in this work, I'm trying to improve, and I'm trying to put my best foot out there. And I also want feedback to know, like, how can I actually, how can I get to the next level? I'm applying and I'm getting rejected through ghosting. But I don't know how to actually improve because these people are not telling me, oh, this is what is holding you back. This is what you need next in your next application in order to reach the next level. I wasn't getting the feedback. I wasn't getting recognized. I wasn't being seen, right? And to me, that was like okay, it doesn't even matter that I applied because it seems like they don't care. Seems like they don't even want to respond, right? I think this is one level of not accepting the subpar. It doesn't foster the desire for people to really want to grow, at least for some people. See, I'm talking about myself. Maybe some people are motivated by that silence. Maybe they are so motivated that they want a response that they're going to improve and get better. And I think that was maybe the case for me at the beginning because I still kept going after these first few, right? I still wanted to get into these teams. But I think what happens is if this continuously happens, if you keep seeing failure over and over again, it's tough to pick yourself back up and continue going at it, right? But if you see failure over and over again, and you never even see how you can overcome this failure and become better and avoid this failure in the future, I think it's 10 times as hard to continue to pick yourself back up and go for it, right? And that's what's happening here. I'm not getting the acknowledgement. I'm not getting any kind of recognition that I'm trying and that the feedback, I'm not getting any kind of feedback to improve where I am and where I'm going, right? I think this is the worst level of not accepting the subpar, right? Because I feel like this is a baseline. Even if you are a strict believer of meritocracy, where subparness and things that are not up to expected standards should not even be acknowledged, or it should not be accepted, should not be allowed to, I don't know, permeate into whatever channel or group or thing that you've set up. I still think acknowledgement is important in fostering the future generation. If you live on this exclusivity, at one point, I think in the future, it always happens where the exclusivity, it becomes a net negative instead of a net positive. Instead of the exclusivity being something like, oh, I want to get into the exclusive club because it's exclusive, people start turning an opinion, being like, I don't want to get into this club anymore because they're all stuck up. They don't acknowledge people trying to get in. So why is it even worth spending my time? They don't respect us as applicants. So why would I think they would respect me as a member? Now, certainly not all the teams were like this. Later on, as I got better, and I think this was perhaps a function of me getting better, right? The teams, the last team that I applied to, they actually responded, right? And they gave me some feedback about what I had to do to improve in my next application to actually get in. Or maybe it wasn't as much feedback on what I could do in my next application to get in, but it was more feedback on why they rejected me, right? And I appreciated that, right? But this is what I think for me, I'm not a strict meritocracy believer, which is why I'm making this whole video about accepting the subpar, right? Because this was the whole idea when I was talking about T3C United and why I thought that was a great initiative. I think it's important to accept the subpar to foster the potential that is there, because otherwise people will lose motivation. And this is what happened to me because of this continued failure that I had applying to editing groups over and over and over again and never getting responses. And then finally this last one, I got at least some feedback. They're like, oh, we didn't accept you because this, and this. But the fact that I was still not accepted, and after failing so many times, perhaps it's just me having a weak mental resolve. And perhaps more people in the world, and certainly there are people in the world that have stronger resolves than I do. But I would say maybe the majority of people, and really you have to play the numbers game if you actually want to foster your community to grow, right? Maybe it's good for elitism to actually get the best of the best by having this kind of attitude. But if you actually want your community to grow, to become bigger, to become more mainstream, to become more popular, and even if you are wary of the potential negative consequences from becoming more mainstream, one thing is always true about having a larger community and a larger population to draw from. There is more of a talent pool. So even if it becomes more mainstream and it becomes flooded with bad stuff, like lower quality edits, there is bound to be more gems in the rough as well. There's going to be more talents that have just not been unearthed yet because they haven't been introduced to the community. And I think that is, perhaps you could say, the danger or the downside of not accepting the subpar. You alienate, or perhaps not alienate, you don't recognize and you don't encourage the community to grow. And that's what happened with me. After that last one, and after the last rejection, I didn't want to edit anymore. It was just failure after failure, and it seemed like I was going on this upward trajectory, but it wasn't being recognized. Like, I'd applied to this T3C United channel over and over again as well, and they were one of the places that never deigned to respond. So this place that I was hailing as a good institution for recognizing potential talents, they never responded to me. And maybe that's because I was never a talent. That makes sense. But I think the general community sentiment in the editing community, like, this is why, spoiler alert, the United channel eventually got shut down. Because it was, I don't even know why. Like, the owners, I think they said it was like too much of a responsibility, too much of a hassle, too much controversy every time like edits made it onto there. So what I thought was one of the best initiatives in the editing community got shut down. And I won't say this is a direct reason, but I will say the editing community now, I think, is much smaller than in its heyday back just, 5 years ago, when it was much bigger, much more healthy. And this infrastructure for helping and encouraging the new wave of talent to come through, it was working. It was keeping the community alive. And in fact, the community was growing. And now it's just, the trends have reversed. I think the community is getting smaller and smaller. I wouldn't consider myself a part of the community anymore. So, I'm like a first-hand example of this happening, right? It's important, I think, to accept the subpar. And this is where I want to now connect it to a broader institution in our society. Affirmative action, right? I think affirmative action, deep down, is a representation of accepting the subpar. Okay? And I want to be very clear. I'm not saying that the people being accepted through affirmative action are subpar because of who they are. Affirmative action usually in the United States is based on like race, right? I want to make it very clear. I'm not saying that because they are a different race than, in this case for college admissions, white and Asian, who dominate college populations usually, and the statistics or the hard things that you can do for improving your chances in college admissions, usually whites and Asians have a leg up in this, right? So I want to be very clear. I'm not saying because they are a different race, they are subpar. No, I think it's because the whole purpose of affirmative action was recognizing that people are not starting on the same level playing field, right? Of course, if somebody puts in 10 units of effort, if two people, person A and person B, both put in 10 units of effort, but person A starts on 20 existing units of effort and person B starts on 5 existing units of effort, then even though they put in the same exact work, one person is now at 30 units of effort or accomplishment and the other person is only at 15. They put in the same work, but they're not at the same level. And I think that was the idea of affirmative action and what it's trying to fix, right? These two people work the same amount. They both have the potential to produce the same amount of stuff. It's just that they're not starting at the same level playing field. But does this mean person B is worse than person A? If person B was given the same resources as person A, could they not do the exact same stuff? And I think that's the basis of affirmative action. Even though person B is subpar on a completely technical level, you can see that they're at 15 units of production while the other person is at 30 units. Okay, that's lower. It's clearly lower. However, you can recognize their potential. You can recognize that they can do the same stuff that person A can do. It's just that they were born into a worse set of circumstances. This is playing an unfair game. And this is what affirmative action, I think, is trying to fix it, which is, maybe I'll talk about it in a different video, which is why I'm always very conflicted because of affirmative action. I think the roots of it, why it exists, is a good thing. It's trying to level the playing field to create a more equal society. But if you think about it too, where I have issues with affirmative action, it also hurts person A, right? Because even though person A is born into a better set of circumstances, somehow now in a way, if there's only one spot and it's competing between person A and person B, and we have affirmative action in place, perhaps person A may be affected in a negative way. They may be impacted and harmed, punished because of their circumstances. So while in a pre-affirmative action way, person B was being punished for something they couldn't control, the circumstances they were placed in, now with affirmative action, person A may be punished for circumstances that they can control, right? I think the point is there's nuance in this, but I can see why affirmative action, why it was created. And I think I see it has a connection with these personal experiences that I've had. And my belief in accepting the subpar as important in nurturing the future generations and in creating a more level playing field. I guess if we're talking about society, that's what I'm saying. But in the context of the editing community, it was to actually encourage people to keep pursuing their craft and to keep improving. It's a tacit acknowledgement that we see you, we see that you're the next generation and that you can do this. And for affirmative action, it's the same thing. It's saying we see you, we see your potential. We see that you can do the same things if you're given the proper resources. So we're going to let you in. In both ways, accepting subpar is not a necessarily bad thing. And in fact, it may be something that is needed